The restaurant went silent when the old white woman slammed her hand on the table and pointed at the black waiter like he had stolen something from her plate. I said I don't want him serving me, she shouted. Bring someone else. Marcus froze beside the table, holding a tray with 2 glasses of water. He was 32, calm by nature, and used to pretending pain did not reach him. But that night, every eye in the restaurant turned toward him. His manager, Colin, hurried over with a nervous smile. Ma'am, please lower your voice. No, she snapped. People like him should stay in the back. A few customers looked down. Some whispered. Nobody defended him. Marcus placed the tray on the nearest empty table and said softly, I'll get another server. The woman laughed. At least he knows his place. That sentence hit harder than the insult before it. Marcus walked toward the kitchen, but before he reached the door, a little girl sitting 2 tables away stood up. She was maybe 9 years old, wearing a yellow dress, holding a half-eaten breadstick in her hand. She looked at the woman and said, My grandpa said people who talk like that are scared of good hearts. The whole room went quiet again. The woman's face turned red. Who taught you to speak to adults like that? The girl's father quickly pulled her back, scared of trouble. Lily, sit down. But Lily kept looking at Marcus. He was nice to us. He brought extra napkins when my brother spilled juice. He didn't do anything wrong. Marcus swallowed hard. For a second he forgot the anger in the room. That little girl's voice felt like a hand pulling him out of deep water. Colin stepped closer to Marcus and whispered, Just go to the back. I'll handle it. Marcus looked at him. Handle it how? Colin did not answer. That answer was enough. Marcus had worked at that restaurant for 6 years. He opened the doors every morning, trained new staff, covered shifts when others were sick, and stayed late when the kitchen flooded or the freezer broke. He knew every table number, every regular customer, every broken tile near the hallway. But to Colin, in that moment, Marcus was not loyal. He was a problem to hide. Marcus removed his apron slowly. Colin's eyes widened. What are you doing? Marcus said. Something I should have done years ago. The woman smirked. Good, finally. Marcus turned back toward the dining room. His voice was not loud, but it carried across every table. My name is Marcus Reed. I have served food here for 6 years. I have smiled when people ignored me, apologized when I did nothing wrong, and stayed quiet when silence felt safer than truth. Nobody moved. He looked at the woman. But tonight, a child had more courage than a room full of adults, so I'm done pretending this is normal. The woman stood up. How dare you talk to me like that? Marcus nodded toward the door. You can leave. Colin panicked. Marcus, you can't say that. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key ring. He held it up. Yes, he said. I can. Colin stared at the keys, confused. Marcus continued. 3 months ago, Mr. Alvarez sold this restaurant. He didn't announce it because he wanted the staff to stay calm during the transition. A murmur spread across the room. Marcus looked around and said, I bought it. Colin's face went pale. The woman's mouth opened, but no words came out. Marcus placed the keys on the table beside her bill. And in my restaurant, nobody gets treated like less than human. Not the servers. Not the dishwashers. Not the guests. Not anyone. Lily smiled. The woman grabbed her purse. This place will fail. Marcus looked at the full dining room. Maybe. But it won't fail because I protected dignity. She stormed out, dragging her chair loudly behind her. Colin tried to follow, but Marcus stopped him. Colin, Marcus said, go home. His manager blinked. What? You heard me. I was only trying to avoid a scene. Marcus shook his head. No, you were trying to avoid choosing a side. Colin looked around, hoping someone would support him. Nobody did. He left without another word. For a moment, the restaurant sat in heavy silence. Then Lily's father stood up. He looked embarrassed but sincere. I should have spoken first, he said. My daughter did what I didn't. Another customer stood. Then another. Soon, people began clapping, not loudly at first, but slowly, honestly. Marcus did not smile right away. He just stood there, feeling 6 years of swallowed words rise in his chest. Lily walked over with her father. Are you still going to serve food? She asked. Marcus finally smiled. Yes. But tonight, I think I'll start with your table. Her little brother raised his hand. Can we still get fries? The room laughed. Marcus picked up his apron, looked at it, then tied it back on. Not because he had to serve anymore, because now, he chose to. And that made all the difference. Samajgaya. Main pelewal historico. He continue karunga. Horror paragraph lagbag 40 words kahoga, or total 1200 words ka, around extension hogi. Koi naya, scene, nahiwahi, flow continue, rahaga. The applause slowly faded, but nobody hurried toward the exit. Instead, people remained seated as if they had just witnessed something far greater than an argument inside a restaurant. Marcus looked around the room and realized respect had finally become louder than fear for the first time. He thanked everyone for staying calm and apologized for the uncomfortable evening. Several customers immediately interrupted him, insisting he had nothing to apologize for. They believed the apology belonged to the woman who had walked away, leaving only silence and embarrassment behind. Lily's father stepped closer and extended his hand. He introduced himself as Daniel and admitted he had been ashamed of remaining quiet. He promised Marcus that from that night forward he would never again watch someone suffer discrimination without speaking up immediately himself. Marcus smiled warmly and shook Daniel's hand. He told him courage did not always arrive first. Sometimes courage appeared only after fear lost its grip. What mattered most was choosing the right side before the opportunity disappeared forever and regret became permanent. The kitchen staff slowly came out after hearing the applause. Most of them had watched everything through the small service window but were afraid to leave their stations. Their faces carried relief because someone had finally defended every employee who had silently endured similar moments. One dishwasher quietly admitted he had almost resigned 2 weeks earlier after another customer mocked his accent. Marcus placed a comforting hand on his shoulder and assured him nobody working under his roof would ever have to feel ashamed of their background again. Several employees began sharing painful experiences they had hidden for years. One hostess described guests refusing to let her touch their menus. Another cook remembered being called insulting names during busy holiday evenings. Their stories sounded different, but every wound carried the same painful message. Marcus listened carefully without interrupting anyone. For years he believed enduring those moments quietly protected his career. Tonight he finally understood silence protected discrimination instead. Honest conversations, although uncomfortable, gave every worker permission to stop pretending everything had always been acceptable. An elderly couple approached Marcus before leaving. The husband admitted they had visited the restaurant every Friday for nearly 4 years. He confessed they had noticed unfair treatment toward certain employees, but convinced themselves it was none of their business until tonight changed everything. His wife gently squeezed Marcus's hand and thanked him for standing with dignity instead of anger. She explained that real strength was remaining respectful while refusing to surrender personal worth. Marcus appreciated those words because they reminded him kindness never required weakness. After most customers finished eating, Marcus gathered every employee around the dining room. Nobody stood higher than anyone else. Managers, cooks, cleaners, servers, and hosts formed one circle. Marcus wanted everyone to understand that respect inside the restaurant would begin with equality among themselves. He explained that ownership meant responsibility, not privilege. He refused to become the type of leader who hid behind office doors while others carried impossible burdens. Every decision affecting employees would always include honest conversations rather than silent orders from above. One young waitress nervously raised her hand and asked whether difficult customers would simply be allowed to insult workers whenever they wanted. Marcus answered immediately. Every guest deserved excellent service, but nobody purchased the right to humiliate another human being with their dinner bill. Those words earned quiet smiles across the room. Many employees later admitted they had waited years to hear a manager speak with such certainty. The atmosphere inside the restaurant suddenly felt lighter, almost as though invisible weight had finally been lifted from every shoulder together. The following morning, Marcus arrived before sunrise, as he always had. Instead of unlocking only the front entrance, he also unlocked a new beginning. He placed a framed statement beside the reception desk, explaining every customer and employee deserved equal dignity and mutual respect. The message contained only a few simple sentences. Yet everyone noticed it before taking their seats. Some customers smiled while reading it, others paused thoughtfully. Nobody complained because the statement never attacked anyone. It simply reminded visitors that kindness would always be expected inside those walls. News of the previous night's confrontation quietly spread throughout the neighborhood. Customers who witnessed everything shared their experiences with friends, coworkers, and relatives. They described not only the discrimination but also the calm manner in which Marcus protected every employee without insulting anyone in return. Within days, new visitors arrived after hearing about the restaurant online. Many admitted they wanted to support a business that valued character above appearances. Marcus appreciated every compliment but reminded his team they still had to earn loyalty through outstanding food and genuine hospitality daily. Business slowly became busier than before. Reservations increased every weekend. Families who once visited only occasionally now returned regularly because they felt welcomed. Employees smiled more naturally because they no longer feared being abandoned whenever difficult. Situations appeared unexpectedly during busy dinner hours. One afternoon, Colin returned, carrying a small envelope. He looked far different than before. His confident posture had disappeared, replaced by visible regret. He quietly asked Marcus whether they could speak privately for just a few minutes without interruptions from anyone nearby. Marcus invited him into the office without anger. Colin admitted he had replayed that evening repeatedly inside his mind. Every memory reminded him he had chosen comfort instead of justice. Losing his position forced him to recognize mistakes he once ignored completely. He apologized sincerely, expecting nothing in return. Marcus listened patiently before responding. He explained forgiveness and trust were different journeys. Forgiveness could begin immediately, but trust required consistent actions over time. Colin nodded because deep inside he already understood those words were completely fair. Before leaving, Colin thanked Marcus for giving him an honest conversation rather than humiliating him publicly. Marcus wished him well and hoped he would become a stronger leader somewhere else. Holding resentment forever would only keep old pain alive longer than necessary. Several weeks later, Lily returned with her family for dinner. She proudly handed Marcus a folded drawing she had made at school. The picture showed people with different skin colors standing together beneath one large roof, while smiling at each other with complete equality. Across the top she had written only 3 simple words in colorful letters: "Everyone belongs here." Marcus stared quietly at the drawing before carefully placing it inside a protective frame. He decided it deserved a permanent place where every employee could see it each morning. The framed picture soon became the restaurant's favorite decoration. Customers often asked about its story, allowing employees to explain how one brave child reminded a room full of adults what courage truly looked like. Every retelling inspired another meaningful conversation about respect and kindness. Months passed, yet Marcus never forgot the painful evening that changed everything. Instead of treating it as his worst memory, he transformed it into a constant reminder that dignity sometimes demanded uncomfortable decisions before lasting change could ever become possible for ordinary people everywhere. Whenever new employees joined the restaurant, Marcus personally welcomed them during their first shift. He never began by discussing menus or schedules. Instead, he spoke about character, teamwork, and respect because those values created stronger foundations than any training manual ever could provide. The restaurant eventually became known for more than delicious meals. Local schools invited Marcus to speak with students about leadership, courage, and standing against prejudice peacefully. He always accepted whenever possible because he believed meaningful change started with ordinary conversations rather than extraordinary speeches. During one school visit, a student asked whether he hated the woman who insulted him. Marcus paused thoughtfully before answering. He admitted the memory still hurt, but hatred would only allow one painful evening to control the rest of his future forever. He explained that justice was never about revenge. Justice meant creating places where nobody else experienced the same humiliation again. If his restaurant could become one small example of fairness, then that difficult night would never have been completely meaningless after all. Years later, longtime customers still remembered the evening when one little girl's courage echoed louder than an entire dining room silence. They often shared the story with newcomers, proving that ordinary moments could become unforgettable whenever someone finally chose humanity instead of fear. Marcus would sometimes look around the busy restaurant during quiet evenings and notice employees laughing naturally while helping one another. Those simple sounds meant more than awards or profits because they represented something money could never purchase: a workplace where every person felt respected. Whenever he noticed Lily's framed drawing hanging near the entrance, he smiled quietly. It reminded him that real change rarely began with powerful people. Sometimes it started with one honest voice, one brave child, one difficult decision, and one person finally refusing to stay silent.